Hi guys, Matt Easton here. So I'm here with Colin Fieldhouse, who runs SG6, our Bradford chapter of Schola Gladiatoria. And I just thought I'd do a little interview with Colin as he's down. We've been doing a special sabre teaching day yesterday. So I thought it'd be an opportunity to just do a little interview with Colin. So how did you get into HEMA?
It all started with Sharp. Back when I was a kid, I loved watching Sharp on TV, and sabres and attractive female lead characters help play a part to a teenage boy.
So I should just explain for our international audience who don't necessarily know who Sharp is. So Richard Sharp, as in the Bernard Cornwell books, a Napoleonic hero, officer of the Rifle Brigade, raised up through the ranks, sort of working class northern hero. Actually, I think in the books he was from Essex.
Yeah, in the books he was
but they changed that in the series for him to be from Yorkshire. Because of course it's famously played by Sean Bean, and he's a Yorkshireman, I guess.
Yes, yeah, he's from Sheffield.
Yeah, so they changed it to being from Yorkshire in the TV series.
And he changes in the later books as well. He suddenly miraculously moves further north.
And for anyone who's from the UK, you'll understand that actually it's quite a big change to change someone from being from Essex to being from Yorkshire.
It's not
because Essex has a very different reputation to Yorkshire. But anyway, in some ways. So you're into Napoleonic hero Richard Sharp, and that would get anyone into swords, wouldn't it?
So I went to my local sports fencing club to take up sports sabre, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't what I was looking for. At the leisure centre I was at, there was a kendo club, so tried that. Really thoroughly enjoyed that as well, but it wasn't. It was a really good martial art from another country. I wanted to learn something that was British, or at least getting closer. Then I stumbled across the Talhofer manual when I started university, the Mark Rector one. I think that's how quite a few people have, when we started getting, got that. And that started me on my trip. And whilst I was at university, I started training with KDF in Leeds, run by Dan Smith and Dean, two really good guys. And as my jobs moved around, I eventually settled in Bradford, and commuting to Leeds to get to an evening class just wasn't possible. And Paul Bennett contacted me one day, and we set up SG6.
Cool. So Paul wasn't running SG6 already, was he? Or?
No, he wanted an assistant instructor, and I had known Paul from my time at KDF.
Ah, right, okay.
And so we got together that way, and I had contact with Paul when I was away at university in Hull.
Right.
And we trained together on a few occasions. He'd driven across, and we trained German longsword for a bit. And whilst after we started SG6, I found Roth online on what was then the new Google book repository.
Yeah.
I just wanted to type in sabre and see what happened. And
big thumbs up to Google Books there, because Google Books has been absolutely amazing for bringing to light not only fencing treatises, which is big enough in itself, but also primary source material that those of us who are studying history and trying to find descriptive accounts of fights or things about records to do with swords and weapons and armour and other kinds of things. Google Books has been amazing.
that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm not selling out to Google here, but they do really, really good stuff that benefits everyone, I think.
Yeah. But, so I discovered. I found the Roth treatise for myself on there, and that got me started into sabre. I started self-study with the sabre and started teaching bits to SG6. And a few years ago at fight camp, I got an injury on my left hand, and I couldn't really use the longsword properly. I couldn't quite get the grip that I needed to. So I just started training exclusively sabre back at class, and Greg, my assistant instructor, he started leading the longsword part of it along with poleaxe. And since then it's just been sabre. And since yourself, you made weight available online, and there's I bought a few copies of Angelo Junior's book and Hutton. I think everybody's got a copy of Hutton somewhere, and used that. And so Roth's my primary treatise, but I like looking at all.
No, it's cool, and it's an interesting fact that this is a common feature of HEMA, is that a lot of people come into HEMA and study one thing, and then over a period of time, one of the great things about HEMA is that you become aware of all these sources that are available, and you can really specialise in the thing that really gets you, that really hooks you. And it can be for various reasons. I mean, I'm sure like me, the sabre, there's many different reasons why it draws you in. It's partly the system, partly the weapons, partly the history. And this is true of any, people who are specifically into longsword or sword and buckler or rapier and dagger or whatever. It tends to be a combination of these things. You just really love that bit of history, or you just love the look of that type of sword.
Well, whilst I was at university, I studied Napoleonics specifically as part of my degree. And so I've always had that fascination with things, and my university dissertation was written on the development of British pattern cavalry sabres.
Oh right.
So it was helpful because I studied in Bradford, having the Royal Armouries in Leeds there, because I got to know the curates quite well, and I got to see all the original patterns of British cavalry sabres, which when you walk in the storeroom at Leeds Armouries is really cool. Yeah,
and for anyone who hasn't been to the Royal Armouries in Leeds, you really have to go if you possibly can. It's an awesome place. It's interesting also that you started, like many of us, you went through sport fencing and through kendo, myself included, and this is such a common thing in HEMA that people have, they try out those two things. There are a few other things that often, eskrima is in there sometimes, and various other things, unarmed martial arts of course as well. But what didn't work for you with sport fencing?
The sports fencing side of things, when you see fighting and when you see fencing, I think Hutton terms it well. Modern like the old masters taught fighting. Modern teachers do nothing but fencing nowadays, and there's having a good scrap is good fun, and sports fencing got close to that. But never quite got that far. The only person you were shouting at was the ref to try and call points on many occasions, and it just didn't feel quite right. But it taught a lot of really good skills. Timing and distance, absolutely fantastic, and a few of the rules. Given that sports fencing is going for very specific goals, and it does it really, really well. The rules that they impose on it are just removed it a little too far for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your boat, that's quite happy. But I wanted just to take a couple of steps closer to what it.
I think this is a very common thing as well, and I think this is most of us who've gone through sport fencing and have gone into maybe classical fencing in some cases or historical fencing. Or indeed other martial arts. I think this is a common feeling: is that we want something that's a bit more like a martial art rather than tag, essentially. But also the other thing you touched on I thought was interesting was the fact that rather than doing another culture's martial art, you wanted to do a European martial art, and that's a very common feature amongst HEMA people as well, and I think it's quite natural. But I know that you've also done Gatka.
Yes. One of the benefits of living in Bradford, I was looking around. I'd read Julian Spilsbury's book on the Indian Mutiny and Sosman of the British Empire and books around that, and that really piqued my interest because it's at a time when that cultural clash and also cross-pollination of ideas, it really fascinates me, and I just simply put Gatka into Google yet again, and it turned out that at one of the local Sikh Gurdwaras there was a class being taught, and I emailed the guy and I rocked up there, and it was Govinda took me under his wing, and we had a really good time doing Gatka lessons there. Unfortunately, can't do it anymore because he had to stop the class for a while. To be fair to him, he travelled up from London to Bradford and taught the class for free. So I really couldn't have asked for much more than that. But that was really, really interesting. Doing the Gatka plays or forms, or kata if you will, it was really interesting to see, and I took my antique talwa along with me, and it was interesting because the forms really show you the use of the talwa itself, and it made a lot more sense holding that than the stick, which many of them use. The sparring was interesting because in Gatka there was no targeting of the head. Most of the guys wore big thick turbans, so it wouldn't make much difference anyway, but sparring without a mask and just a stick that's travelling very, very fast was a very enlightening experience.
It's a different psychologically than when you're wearing a fencing mask, isn't it? But so there we go. So GAPCA experience as as well as obviously all the HEMA stuff and sport fencing and kendo, and this is great. And I think I would certainly personally like to have more interaction with the GAPCA community in the future, and I think there's a lot of interesting exchange to be had there. So anyway, thank you very much, Colin,
No problem.
and hopefully we'll be seeing Colin again in some future videos next time that we're in the same place as each other. But thank you all, and thank you to Colin.
Cheers, thanks guys, thank you Matt.
Thank you.